There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes not from working too hard, but from working too hard for the wrong person. It is not the tired you feel after a long day. It is the tired you feel when you finally stop lying to yourself about what is actually happening around you. I know that exhaustion well. I carried it for almost 3 years before I understood what it was. My name is not important for this story. What matters is the context. I was 31 years old, working as a senior analyst at a mid-sized logistics company in Atlanta. Not a glamorous job, not the kind of career that makes people lean forward at dinner parties, but it was good work, honest work, and I was genuinely good at it. I had built systems for that company that saved them close to $400,000 in operational costs over 2 years. I had a performance record that my direct manager, a man named Gerald, described in my last review as, quote, the strongest analytical output this department has produced in 6 years. I tell you that not to sound impressive. I tell you that because it matters later. Gerald had been my manager since I joined the company. He was the kind of person who was easy to like at first, organized, professional, the right amount of friendly without being the type who invited you to things on weekends. He gave clear feedback, he acknowledged good work. In the beginning, I thought I had landed well, a competent manager who respected results. That's rarer than people think. The first 3 years were genuinely fine. I worked hard, delivered consistently, and earned 2 merit raises that Gerald personally pushed through. There was a rhythm to things. I understood my role, and my role felt secure. What I did not know, what I had no reason to know at the time, was that Gerald had a problem. Not a work problem, a career problem. Specifically, the problem of being a 47-year-old middle manager in a company that was beginning to restructure from the top down, quietly, the way companies do before they make announcements. The kind of restructuring where certain layers of management start to look redundant, where the people above start asking whether they need a Gerald at all, or whether the people under Gerald could simply report upward directly. I found this out much later, but it explains everything that came before it. The first shift I noticed was subtle. Gerald started being more present in my work, not in a helpful way, more in a hovering way, asking to be copied on emails I had always handled independently, wanting to review reports before they went to the senior team, even routine ones that had never required his sign-off before. I assumed he was under some pressure from above and needed visibility. I accommodated it without complaint. Then the presentations started. Our department occasionally presented findings to the executive team, quarterly operational reviews, cost analysis summaries, that kind of thing. Historically, the analyst who produced the work presented it. That was just how it was done. But around month 14 of this new dynamic, Gerald started presenting my work himself. The first time, he mentioned it was a scheduling conflict. The second time, he said the executives preferred a single point of contact for continuity. By the third and fourth time, there was no explanation at all. It was just the new normal. I want to be honest here. I did not immediately recognize what was happening because I trusted him, and because I trusted him, I filtered everything through that trust. His behavior had explanations that were uncomfortable but not alarming, if you were willing to look for them. And I was willing, because the alternative, that my manager was deliberately making himself appear to be the author of my work, was not something I wanted to be true. So I let it go. 3 times. 4 times, and then a 5th. The moment that finally made me stop filtering was a Thursday afternoon in February. I was eating lunch at my desk when I overheard a conversation in the hallway outside Gerald's office. One of the senior directors, a woman named Patricia, who sat 2 floors above us, was talking to Gerald. I was not trying to listen, but the walls were thin and she was not using a quiet voice. She said, and I remember this almost word for word, "Gerald, the modeling framework you built for the Q3 distribution analysis was exactly what we needed. We're going to use that same structure for the national expansion projections." And Gerald said, Thank you, I'm glad it landed well. That modeling framework was mine. Every formula, every assumption, every structural decision. I had spent 11 days building it and another 3 refining it after Gerald's feedback. He had contributed 2 minor notes in the margin of the draft. I sat at my desk for the rest of that afternoon without moving much. Not emotional, not exactly, just very, very still. Because something had shifted. The explanation I had been giving him, the benefit of the doubt I had extended, just ran out, quietly, like a balance hitting zero. I did not say anything to Gerald. I did not change my behavior. I went home, made dinner, and thought for a long time about what I actually knew versus what I suspected. I made a list in my head. 5 instances I could name specifically, 5 pieces of work with clear attribution, clear timelines, clear evidence of origin if anyone looked carefully. And then I made a decision. I started documenting everything. Not aggressively, not in a way anyone would notice, but carefully and consistently. Every deliverable I produced, I began sending myself an email at the draft stage with a timestamp before it went to Gerald. I kept a private log on my personal laptop, dates, descriptions, the original files with their metadata intact. For the larger projects, I began subtly embedding details that would be difficult for someone else to explain if asked. Small things, specific references to internal conversations only I had been part of, footnotes that pointed to sources only accessible from my workstation. Nothing that disrupted the work itself, just a quiet, patient trail that said, "This came from here, from me." I did this for 4 months. During those 4 months, Gerald continued exactly as before. He presented my Q1 cost reduction analysis to the executive team and received what I later learned was a standing compliment from the CFO. He submitted a strategic memo under his own name that incorporated, nearly verbatim, a framework I had drafted and shared with him as a preliminary working document. He was, by all appearances, having the best professional stretch of his career. My patience during that period was not passive. I was not simply waiting for something to happen. I was building a case, quietly and without anyone's knowledge, and I was also, and this part matters, opening a door. A contact of mine from a previous job had moved to the parent company of our organization, which had recently opened a regional analytical division. She had reached out to me twice in the previous year about potential opportunities. I had deflected both times because I felt settled where I was. After February, I called her back. We had 3 conversations over 6 weeks. At the end of the 3rd, there was a formal offer on the table. A role 2 levels above what I currently held, significantly better compensation, and a direct reporting line to someone I had already vetted through 3 separate professional references. I accepted it on a Wednesday morning. That same Wednesday afternoon, I requested a meeting with Patricia, the senior director, for the following day. Gerald was not copied on the request. I want to tell you what that meeting felt like, but the truth is it was less dramatic than it sounds. I went in calmly, I brought a folder, I explained that I was transitioning out of the company and wanted to ensure proper documentation was in place for the projects currently in progress. And then, because she asked directly what projects those were, I walked her through them. My projects, with dates and drafts and version histories and the specific analytical decisions behind each one, the kind of granular detail that is only possible when you were the person who actually built something. Patricia was a smart woman. She understood what she was hearing before I was finished. She asked 2 clarifying questions. I answered both. Then she said she appreciated me bringing this to her attention and that the transition would be handled appropriately. I thanked her and left. I do not know the full details of what happened with Gerald after that. I was not there for it, and I did not try to find out. What I do know from a brief message I received about 6 weeks later from a former colleague was that Gerald's role was eliminated in a departmental restructuring. Not fired dramatically, just quietly removed the way organizations remove people when they want to minimize paperwork and noise. The National Expansion Project, the one Patricia had praised Gerald for, was reassigned. The framework continued to be used. My name was not on it officially, but the work was still running, still saving money, still doing what it was designed to do. That part I made peace with. My new role was better in every measurable way. More scope, more respect, more honest compensation for what I actually contributed. I was reporting to someone who understood how to read the room, how to distinguish between the person who does the work and the person who presents it. That distinction should be rare, but in my experience, it is. Here's what I want you to take from this. Gerald was not a villain in the way we usually imagine them. He did not sit in a dark room plotting against me. He was a scared, insecure person who was running out of relevance and decided to use someone else's output to buy himself more time. That is a very human kind of wrong. It does not make it less wrong, but it means the solution was never emotional. It was never a confrontation in a hallway, a dramatic accusation, a moment of righteous anger. The solution was documentation, patience, and an exit that made the truth visible without requiring me to say it loudly. The best revenge is never the loudest one. It is the one where you leave, move forward, and the consequences simply follow the facts you already laid out, quietly, carefully, long before anyone knew you were paying attention. I paid attention. That was the whole plan. That was enough.